enhance and modify how you convey yourself. Today, John Stopchick, our first panelist, is going to talk about adding effects and working with chat during your Zoom experience. Please help me welcome John Stopchick.
Thank you, Kyle. I am super excited today to get to share some of the most basic Zoom tools that I use at pretty much every single Zoom meeting I get to attend. I do want to take a tiny sidetrack and say I didn't realize I was taking, quote, workcations well before COVID ever struck. In fact, I would encourage all of you, after COVID is over, if you get the chance to work from home and you have a garden, work in the garden. It is so zen-like. Without further ado, I'd like to continue talking about some of the skills. As Kyle said, I'll be talking about some of the techniques you can use to enhance your Zoom experience. The first thing I want to do is just show you a little something, and I know you can't see my screen if I share it, so I'm actually going to share my screen first. Now, you should see a Mr. Meeseeks on my screen. For those of you who don't know what that is, it doesn't matter. It's basically my desktop wallpaper. But you should see my screen right now. So if you can't, you may be experiencing technical difficulties. With that said, I need my menu as well. Here we go. And I can go and make a little change to myself here and actually add an image really quickly in real time, which reflects my current background. Now, do you just see my background right now and you don't see anything else, or do you see actually a window where I'm looking through photos?
I see the window with you looking through photos.
Okay, perfect. So I wasn't sure about that one. If you see that, that's something, if you have a second window, you might want to have. You can slide that over, and actually I have a cool little background I just want to throw on my screen for sake of how this can be so beneficial. And I got to move quickly because I only have 11 minutes. My goodness. There we go. So one of my favorite gags with Zoom is that you can really play with backgrounds. You can have fun with that. At this point, you should see the Brady Bunch on my screen, on my background. And that is one of the coolest tools about Zoom, is you can create the mood before your speech. So what I want to show you is a simple picture. Everyone on your screen should see there's a video button, either on the bottom or on the top, depending on what you're doing. And some of you, if you're using Linux or some of these smaller devices, phones, may not see that ability. So don't be alarmed if you're on one of those operating systems and you don't see that. But if you do have basically a Windows or a standard Mac, what you can actually do is look for an icon that looks kind of like this. I'm going to go ahead and close this window. You should see a stop video, but then a little arrow attached to it. You can select choose virtual background or choose video filter. You can do this in real time. As I've demonstrated here, you could actually see as I brought up the screen though. So you want to have either a second monitor or have your backgrounds ready and your folders arranged. There are some soft things to note about setting up for these sort of presentations. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and do exactly what you see here on my screen. I'm going to click that little arrow, and I see change virtual background. And as you just saw, I brought up the Brady Bunch, and it brings up a screen with my picture and all the virtual backgrounds. There's a little plus symbol. I'm going to go ahead and bring up another background here. You can see the little plus symbol on the right side in the center of my screen on this image I brought up. If you click that symbol, you could add new images and videos while you're giving a presentation, let alone ahead of time. Now, I would advise you to set these up ahead of time. If you add them, you can select from the images you've selected in the past. So now I can select my studious dog background, which is a picture from Adventure Time, or I can pick my Tyrannosaurus Rex in disarray background. All of these have had uses in different speeches. If you've got a mood you want to set, you could literally leave this screen up in the bottom left corner of your screen or a different part of your screen, and you can cycle through them as you convey a mood in your speech. As you see here, there's also a video filters feature. You can click video filters and, in fact, see a bunch of features that are provided by Zoom. Now, There's a bunch of them. Like I can add sunglasses to myself. If I'm really bad at eye contact, well, that's not a problem anymore. I've got the shades. If you want to add an expression and really play with something goofy, you can add a tiny hat to your character, to yourself, excuse me. You're really playing with a character on the screen. That's kind of the point of all of this. Now, video filters, backgrounds, those are some of the fundamentals. Those are some of the most basic things. I love them, but I tend to turn them off after a while and only use a background of a single one relevant to my speech. And so with that in mind, I'm going to go to something a bit more neutral. You can really convey a tone of what your personality is with those. So I'd like to move on to some other features that are a bit more practical and useful day to day. That being the save chat feature. Saving a chat is something that at least half of the meetings I have encountered, someone has asked, hey, how do I save the chat? How do I put all that down? And there are two caveats to this. The first is that saving chat needs to be enabled. The second is whether or not you want to do it manually or automatically. This is something that doesn't get mentioned too much, and I just want to give a shout out to this, but it's not something you necessarily will need to know unless you're running a meeting. You can configure in your profile settings by going to, when you go into Zoom, clicking the settings section, the ability to automatically save chats. As you can see here, you can actually tell it to autosave as a setting, and then that will save the chat at Zoom when you run the meeting. Most people, though, aren't worried about that sort of thing. Most people want to save chats to their local machine during the meeting and their attendees. As Kyle said, this is about the attendee side of things. With that in mind, everyone here should be able to see the chat menu. If you cannot, the chat menu is under you either will have three dots that say more, or on the bottom of your screen, you'll have a little chat icon, and it's just a little thought bubble that you can click. I'm going to go ahead and click my chat window and try to figure out where it is on the screen. Here we go. It's right on the center of my screen. Can you see my chat? Can you see this on my screen? No, you can't? That's fine, because I have this picture here. That's exactly why I saved it. This picture here, when you have the chat window up via the little thought bubble, it'll appear on your screen and you'll see it, and you'll have this everyone, this file menu, and these ellipses on a button. The ellipses, you want to click in the chat window. And when you click that, there will be a save chat option. Once you click that, it'll actually just save it straight to your computer. You'll see a little green pop-up that says chat saved. And you can click show in folder, and you'll see that it actually brings up the folder of the meeting chat on my screen here. I can go ahead then and open it, and you can see the discussion that we've been having in real time during this meeting. That will be saved to your computer, and if you aren't sure how to access it, it will go into a folder that you can click this little URL button up here, or this little URL bar up here. You want to highlight that and either put it in Notepad or save it if you're not someone who tends to remember your file organization on your computer, and let's face it, most people aren't. Save that path so you can quickly load your chat conversations. I'll be honest, I email myself a ton of this stuff. This path here where it's my documents, Zoom, and the date. In this case, I've memorized it, but most things like this, email it to yourself. You'll save yourself a ton of time trying to find things. So saving chat is pretty straightforward. It pops up. You can bring it into a folder and save it. You can, and they'll all be saved in that general area. There's one other thing I want to share with everybody here, and that is side-by-side and speaker and gallery view. These are things that I use pretty obsessively. I'm constantly fidgeting with how everything's laid out on my desktop, and I like to see how people are reacting to what I'm talking about. I want to know if I'm on point. A great example is during this meeting, I'll realize I'm not getting proper eye contact, and that discourages the other viewers from doing good eye contact. So knowing what the viewers are doing while I'm sharing, big deal. I'm going to go ahead and bring up another screenshot, and it should come up momentarily. Here we go. Now Many of you, again, should have this menu on either the top of your screen or on the bottom of your screen. And that menu is things like mute, stop video, participants, new share, pause share, annotate, and remote control. If you don't see a view button, take a look at the ellipses, and you should see all of the different video panel options. You'll see if if you're an attendee and you're not speaking, you will see this view button. You should see it on the top right corner of your screen. When you click that, if you click speaker view, it'll put my face up big front and center. If you click gallery view, you'll see everyone. And if the option is enabled in the Zoom meeting, you'll actually be able to drag the people's faces around. Another great tip and tool is if you see if you're in the gallery view, you can click and drag someone's face to the top middle of your screen or wherever you have your webcam, so you're maintaining that eye contact. So these are a couple of little things to help just enhance that experience and make it a bit more personal. You can do side by side if it's available and enabled. And there are differing options based on the settings of the presenter. Sometimes you may or may not have some of these settings. You can always ask your Zoom host if they're available. Those are the big 4 things I wanted to talk about today. Now, I know I went through that very quickly, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat. And now that you know how to save the chat, you can always back reference that once you're ready.
Game over.